The house was quiet, too quiet for a place that had been lived in for years. The human Daniel had only moved in a few days ago. He thought the old wooden floors creaked because of the wind. He thought the faint echoes in the night were only the sound of pipes breathing. But tonight was different, tonight. He heard something that made his heart skip a beat. It was soft at first, almost like a whisper. He froze in the hallway. Holding his breath, his ears strained. There it was again. A sound that was not the groan of wood or the hiss of pipes. It was more like a voice, faint and broken, coming from below his feet. Daniel tried to laugh it off, telling himself it was his imagination. After all, the house was old. The previous owner had passed away and no one had lived here for years. Still, he could not shake the feeling that the sound was real. His eyes drifted toward the narrow wooden door at the end of the hall. The basement, during the day, he had avoided that place. The lock on the outside of the basement door always made him uneasy. Why would anyone lock a door from the outside? Unless they wanted to keep something in, not out. The whisper came again. This time clearer, it sent a shiver down his spine. He grabbed his flashlight, its cold metal trembling in his hand. His heart pounded in his chest. He took slow steps toward the door. Each creak of the floor sounded like a warning, but his curiosity pushed him forward. The door loomed in front of him, paint chipped and wood dark with age. The lock looked rusty but strong. He hesitated. His mind screamed at him to turn back, but something deep inside told him he had to know the truth. With a shaky breath, he pulled the key the seller had given him. He had never thought he would need it so soon. The key slid into the lock with a reluctant scrape. For a moment it refused to turn. Then with a sharp click, it gave way. The door creaked open, releasing a stale, damp smell of dust and stone. Daniel shined the flashlight down the stairs. The beam cut through the darkness, showing broken shelves, piles of old boxes, and cracked walls. At first, everything seemed normal. Then his light caught something that made his blood run cold. Two glowing eyes stared back at him from the far corner of the basement. They were wide and unblinking. Reflecting the light like a predator's, Daniel's breath hitched. His first instinct was to slam the door shut, but his legs would not move. He took one step down, then another. The wooden stairs groaned under his weight. The air grew colder, his flashlight trembled in his grip. The eyes did not move. They only watched him, patient and silent. When he reached the bottom, his light finally revealed the figure. A woman, or something close to a woman, sat chained to the wall. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost silver under the beam. Her long hair was tangled. Her clothes torn, she looked weak, but her eyes were full of strange light. Daniel froze, his mind raced for answers. Was this some cruel trick left by the last owner? A prisoner, a stranger hiding before he could speak? The woman's lips moved. Her voice was soft. Almost broken, husband, she whispered. The words struck him like thunder. His heart thudded against his ribs. He blinked, unsure if he had heard right. She repeated the word, her voice stronger this time. Husband? Daniel stumbled back, hitting a wooden beam. What are you talking about? He stammered. His voice cracked, but the woman only smiled faintly, her glowing eyes never leaving his face. She lifted her chained hand weakly, reaching toward him. The chains rattled with a cold metallic sound. Daniel's legs shook, fear battled with confusion, and confusion battled with curiosity. How did she know him? He had never seen her before in his life, yet she spoke as if she had been waiting for him all along. The flashlight flickered once, the shadows of the basement shifting. For a moment it felt like the walls themselves were watching. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to run, to lock the door forever, but deep inside, something told him this was no ordinary encounter. The woman lowered her hand, her voice fading into a whisper again. You finally came. Daniel stood frozen, the beam of light shaking across the damp stone floor. The air was heavy, thick with silence and secrets. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding louder than anything else, and in that moment he realized two things. The first was that the basement was never meant to stay locked forever. The second was that his life had just changed in a way he could never have imagined. Daniel's knees almost gave out. His flashlight wavered across the damp walls as his eyes stayed locked on the figure in the corner. The chains rattled softly when she moved, a sound that echoed far too loudly in the silence of the basement. Her silver-tinted skin seemed unreal, like something painted by moonlight. Her glowing eyes never left him. Husband, she whispered again. Her voice was weak but clear. It carried an emotion Daniel could not understand, like longing mixed with relief. Daniel shook his head. No. I don't know you, he muttered. His throat felt dry. He wanted to climb the stairs, close the door, and pretend this nightmare wasn't real. But his feet stayed rooted, as if the floor itself held him there. The woman tried to lift her arm. The chain clinked, pulling her back against the wall. Her wrist was bruised, skin raw from metal biting into it. She let out a small sound of pain but didn't stop staring at him. You don't remember, she said softly. Her words sent a strange chill through him. It was not just the way she spoke. It was how she said it, as if she truly knew him. As if she had been waiting for him for longer than he could imagine. Daniel swallowed hard. Who are you? His voice cracked as the beam of light trembled over her face. She looked young but not fragile. Her cheekbones sharp, her hair long and messy. Strands of silver mixed with dark streaks. Her beauty was strange, not human but not monstrous either. Something in her face felt familiar, though he couldn't explain why. She smiled faintly, though her lips were cracked. I am yours, she whispered. I was promised to you. Long before you were born. Daniel's heart pounded. He backed away a step, shaking his head violently. That's impossible, he whispered. You're not real. You can't be real. But she leaned forward as far as the chains allowed. The shadows stretched across her face, making her eyes glow brighter. You think this is a dream, she said. But dreams don't chain themselves to stone walls. Daniel felt sweat running down his back. He wanted to deny it, yet his senses screamed the truth. The cold air in the basement, the rust smell of the chains, the sharpness in her glowing gaze, it was all real. He forced himself to step closer, his voice shaking. Why are you here? Why were you locked down here? Her face darkened, her voice lowered until he had to lean in to hear. Because they fear what I am, she said. They kept me hidden, waiting for you. They tried to break me, but they could not. My bond is stronger than their cages, Daniel blinked. Confusion filling every part of his mind. Waiting for me. Why me? Her lips curved in a fragile smile. Because you are mine, and I am yours, she whispered. Her words were heavy, as if each one carried centuries of weight. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to shout at her to stop. But the way she looked at him like he was the only person in the galaxy who mattered, froze him in place. Then she did something that made his breath catch. She whispered his name, not just husband, but his full name. Daniel Reed, she said, her voice trembling like she had carried it on her tongue for years. He nearly dropped the flashlight, his stomach twisted. How do you know my name? He demanded. His voice echoed off the cold stone walls. The woman's chains clinked as she pulled them. The metal groaning, her eyes shined brighter. I have always known, she said, because you are the reason I was brought here. Daniel stumbled back a step. His mind raced through every logical explanation. Maybe she had read it somewhere, maybe someone told her, but deep inside, logic could not smother the dread rising in his chest. His flashlight beam landed on the iron collar around her neck, etched with strange markings that looked older than anything he had ever seen. His heart hammered harder. He felt as though he was standing in the middle of something ancient. Something dangerous. The woman's voice softened again. They said you would come, she whispered. I prayed it was true. Every day in this darkness I prayed, and now... You are here. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but no words came for a long moment. They only stared at each other, human and alien, prisoner and stranger. Something unspoken passed between them, something he could not name. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed from above. The house groaned as if someone heavy had stepped inside. Daniel's head snapped upward. His blood ran cold. He lived alone. No one else should be here. The woman's glowing eyes widened. They know, she whispered urgently. They've come for me. Daniel's heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. He gripped the flashlight tighter, his mind torn between fear and instinct. He didn't know who they were or what they wanted, but he understood one thing. If they were here, the woman was in danger, and maybe so was he. Daniel's chest tightened as the sound above faded. He held his breath, staring at the basement ceiling. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. His grip on the flashlight was so tight his knuckles turned white. Slowly he turned back toward the woman chained against the wall. Her glowing eyes watched him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. You must believe me, she whispered. Her voice was desperate but steady. You are not just a man who bought this house. You are the one I've waited for. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, I don't even know you, he said. His words came out rough, almost angry, but his anger was really fear. Fear of her strange eyes, fear of the chains, fear of the impossible truth sitting in front of him. The woman leaned forward as far as her chains would allow. Her wrists trembled under the weight of the metal, but her gaze never wavered. "Your blood remembers me," she said. "Your soul remembers me," Daniel swallowed hard. "That's crazy," he muttered. I can't remember something I never lived." She smiled faintly, her cracked lips curving into something soft. "Not in this life," she said, "but in another you were mine. And I was yours." The word slammed into him like a hammer. He stumbled back, his flashlight shaking across the stone floor. He wanted to scream that she was insane, that this was all some twisted trick. But deep in his chest something stirred, like an echo he couldn't explain. "What are you talking about?" he whispered hoarsely. "Another life, that's impossible." Her voice was calm now. Too calm. "Not impossible," she said. "Just forgotten. They erased it. They made sure you would never know, but when I saw you tonight, I knew the bond is still here." Daniel felt a strange warmth in his hand. He realized she was reaching toward him again. Her fingers stretched as far as the chains allowed. He hesitated, then against every instinct, he took one slow step closer. Her fingertips brushed his skin, and in that instant his world shattered. A rush of images exploded in his mind. He saw stars stretching endlessly, a battlefield lit by fire and smoke. He saw himself, yet not himself, standing in armor he had never worn. Holding her hand, her glowing eyes filled with tears. He heard voices screaming, ships burning, and a promise whispered in the chaos. "We will find each other again." Daniel yanked his hand back with a gasp. His chest heaved, sweat dripped down his forehead. He stared at her with wide eyes, his mind screaming that none of this was real. But his heart told him it was. What was that?" he demanded, his voice cracked. "What did you do to me?" The woman looked at him with sorrow. "I only showed you what already sleeps inside you," she whispered. "They tried to bury it, but a bond like ours cannot die." Daniel shook his head violently. "No, I don't believe this," he said. His voice trembled, but not with certainty, with fear. "This isn't real. I'm just imagining things. I'm tired. That's all." But the woman's chains rattled as she leaned forward again. Her voice grew urgent. "If it were imagination, why would you see what I see? Why would you feel what I feel?" Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. The images still burned in his mind. His heart still pounded with the echo of a promise he didn't remember making. The woman closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "You are my husband. Not by chance, but by destiny. You were always meant to find me. And now that you have, they will come to take me away. Unless you choose." Daniel's head snapped up. "Choose what?" he asked. His voice was sharp, demanding. Her glowing eyes opened slowly, staring deep into him. "Choose to believe," she said. "Choose to stand with me. Or walk away and let them drag me into the dark forever." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to slam the basement door, drive far from this cursed house and never look back. But the weight of her words pressed on him. The memory of the battlefield of her hand in his haunted him. He whispered to himself, "This can't be real. This can't be real." But deep inside he already knew it was. He had felt her pain through the chains. He had seen the fire in the stars. The woman tilted her head, her voice softening. "I do not ask you to understand tonight," she said. "Only to see me, truly see me, and know that you are not alone." Her words cut deeper than he expected. For years, Daniel had felt alone, even when surrounded by people, and now in this cold, dark basement chained to a wall was someone who looked at him like he was the only soul in the universe. The silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Daniel's flashlight dimmed slightly, the shadows around them growing deeper. His heart pounded with one question he couldn't push away. If everything she said was true, then what would happen next? Daniel could still feel the ghost of her touch on his skin. It burned like fire, not painful, but alive. He paced across the cold stone floor, the beam of his flashlight trembling as it followed him. His mind spun with too many thoughts at once. Her strange words, the visions, the impossible claim that he had once been hers. He stopped suddenly, forcing his breath to steady. "No," he muttered under his breath. "This is crazy. This is not happening." He glanced at her again, chained against the wall, her glowing eyes following his every move. She didn't look like a monster. She looked tired, bruised, yet unbroken. Then she spoke again, her voice low. but heavy like a storm about to break. "Daniel, you don't have time to doubt. They will come." Daniel stiffened. "Who's coming?" his voice echoed. Sharper than he intended, her eyes darkened, glowing like embers in the dim light. "The hunters," she whispered. "The ones who locked me here. They have always known the bond could awaken. They will not let me stay with you if they find me free. They will kill you first." A cold wave rushed through him. He tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "Hunters," he repeated. "Listen, this isn't some movie. There's no alien hit squad coming after me," but even as he said it, a part of him remembered the creak above. The sound of heavy steps that weren't his. The house had felt alive, like something had entered it. The woman tugged at her chains weakly. The iron scraped against the wall. "You doubt because you are human," she said softly. "You believe only what you see. But you saw the truth when you touched me. You felt the bond. That bond will draw them here." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it again, but something in her voice made him pause. She wasn't begging. She wasn't lying for pity. She was warning him. He crouched down a few feet away, lowering the flashlight so it lit the ground between them. "Then tell me," he demanded, "who are they? And why me?" Her breathing slowed, her voice almost a whisper. "They are called the Krail," she said. "They are hunters of my kind. They chained me because I refused them. They wanted me to break the bond. To forget you, but I would not. They fear humans. They fear what happens when our lives join. That is why they hide me. That is why they come now." Daniel's skin crawled at her words. He tried to steady his voice. "You're saying they've been watching me that all this time? Someone's been waiting for me to walk into this house." Her lips trembled into a faint smile. "Not waiting," she corrected, "hunting." Before Daniel could respond, the ground shuddered. A low rumble rolled through the walls. His flashlight flickered once. The air grew colder, heavier, as though the basement itself was holding its breath. His heart thudded. He looked up toward the ceiling. He could hear it now, faint, muffled thuds above, like boots stepping across his living room floor. "They're here," she whispered. Her voice trembled for the first time. Not with fear for herself, but for him. "You must decide now." Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. He backed toward the stairs, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. Shadows stretched under the door above. Someone was moving slowly, carefully, as if searching. He turned back to the chained woman. "What do you expect me to do?" he hissed. His voice was low but frantic. "I don't even know who you are. And you want me to fight invisible hunters?" Her eyes burned into him. "Not invisible," she whispered, "real. And they will come for you. Because you are mine." Daniel shook his head. His mind screamed to run, to escape before whoever was upstairs found the basement door. But deep inside, a strange pull kept him rooted. Something in her words, in her eyes, in the visions she had given him, chained him tighter than any iron. The footsteps grew louder. He could hear a faint clicking sound, like claws tapping against the wooden floorboards. His breath caught in his throat. This was no burglar, no normal intruder. The woman's chains rattled as she tried to move closer. "Free me," she begged in a whisper. "Only together can we fight them. Alone you will die. With me, you might live." Daniel stared at her, the heavy lock on the chains glinting in the light. His hand shook as he reached into his pocket. The house seller had given him a ring of keys, most for doors, some he hadn't even identified. His fingers brushed against them now. The footsteps stopped directly above the basement. The silence was worse than the sound. He could almost feel something standing there. Listening, waiting, his breath came fast and shallow. He looked at the woman again. Her glowing eyes softened. "Please, Daniel," she whispered. "You were never meant to fight this world alone." The basement door groaned. A shadow slipped through the crack as the handle turned slowly. Daniel's heart leapt into his throat. He had seconds to choose. Unlock the chains and trust the stranger who called him husband, or face whatever waited at the door by himself. The handle of the basement door turned with a slow, painful squeak. Daniel's blood turned to ice. His hand trembled on the flashlight, and his body pressed back against the damp stone wall. He could hear every breath he took, harsh and uneven in the silence. The door creaked open inch by inch until a sliver of light from the hallway spilled down the staircase. Daniel's heart pounded like a drum inside his chest. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to move. A shadow stretched across the top step. Long and twisted, the sound of boots followed. Heavy but careful, then came a faint clicking noise. Like claws tapping on wood, the air grew colder, thicker, As if the house itself knew intruders had come, the woman in chains leaned forward, her glowing eyes wide. "Daniel," she whispered urgently. "You must free me now if you face them alone. You will not survive." Daniel's hand hovered over the keyring in his pocket. His mind screamed not to trust her, not to make things worse. But the footsteps on the stairs were drawing closer. The shadow moved again, stretching larger. He fumbled with the keys, metal jingling in his shaking hands. The noise echoed like thunder. He cursed under his breath. His heart raced faster as he crouched near her chains. His flashlight beam quivered over the heavy lock binding her wrists. "Which one?" he hissed. "Which key?" Her voice was calm even now. "Your hand will know," she whispered. "Trust it." Daniel wanted to scream at her. But there was no time. He shoved a key into the lock. It jammed. He pulled it out and tried another. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped them. The first hunter appeared in the doorway. Daniel froze. The creature ducked low to step inside. Its frame was tall, too tall. It wore dark armor that glistened under the faint light. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but two burning red eyes glared through narrow slits. In its clawed hand was a weapon. Long and sharp, Daniel's throat closed. The hunter moved slowly, scanning the basement with steady breaths that rattled like metal scraping stone. The woman's chains rattled as she pulled at them. "Daniel," she urged, louder this time, "now." He shoved another key into the lock. This one clicked, his chest leapt with hope. The lock clattered to the ground. The chain slid free from one of her wrists. She gasped, finally able to move her arm. The hunter's head snapped toward the sound. The red eyes burned brighter. It let out a low growl, then began stepping down the stairs, each thud like the toll of a bell. Daniel grabbed the fallen chain and yanked at the second lock, but it was different, larger. He fumbled with the keys again, his hands slick with sweat. The hunter reached the bottom of the stairs. It raised its weapon, a blade that shimmered unnaturally. Daniel raised his flashlight, blinding the creature for an instant. Then he swung it like a club, striking the armored chest with a desperate cry. The blow did nothing. The hunter barely flinched. Instead, it let out a guttural laugh, a sound that made Daniel's skin crawl. It raised its blade higher, ready to strike before it could. The chained woman lifted her free hand. Her glowing palm pressed against the air, and a wave of light burst outward. The hunter staggered back, snarling. Its armor smoked where the light touched it. Daniel stared in shock, his heart hammered. She wasn't helpless, not at all. "Finish unlocking me," she cried. Her voice echoed like thunder. "Or we both die." Daniel's fingers scrambled over the keys, one after another, until finally the last lock clicked open. The chains clattered to the ground. She stumbled forward, her body weak but her eyes blazing like stars. The hunter roared and lunged. Daniel barely managed to duck aside. The blade slashed through stone, sparks flying. Dust rained from the wall. The woman stepped between Daniel and the hunter. Her hands glowed brighter now. Her voice rose in a strange language, the words sharp and powerful. The basement walls shook as the light burst from her again. The hunter screeched, its armor cracking under the force. Daniel, still on the ground, grabbed the fallen chain and swung it wildly. The heavy metal wrapped around the hunter's arm. Pulling its blade off course, the creature snarled and turned on him. But the woman struck first, her palm slammed into its chest, and a shockwave of light sent it crashing into the far wall. The hunter twitched once, then lay still, smoke curling from its armor. The basement stank of burnt metal and dust. Daniel's chest heaved. He stared at the fallen creature in disbelief. His mind refused to accept what he had just seen. What are they?" he whispered. The woman turned to him, her glowing eyes softer now. "The Krail," she said, her voice still breathless. "And this is only the first, others will follow." Daniel's heart sank. He could hear more thuds upstairs, heavier this time. More shadows moved across the crack of light at the door. The woman extended her hand to him, not as a prisoner, but as an equal. "You must choose now. Daniel," she said, "to stand with me, or to die alone." The door above groaned again, and more hunters stepped inside. The basement trembled as the heavy boots of more hunters pounded down the stairs. The shadow stretched long across the damp walls. Daniel's breath came fast, his chest heaving as he gripped the chain in his hands. The fallen hunter still smoked in the corner. Its armor cracked open like burnt metal, but there were more, and each step down the stairs felt like a countdown to his end. The alien woman, now free of her chain, stood tall though her body was thin and weak. Her silver-tinted skin shimmered under the trembling beam of Daniel's flashlight. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, fierce and unblinking. She turned to him and spoke with a steady voice. "Stay near me." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Stay near you," he muttered. "They've got weapons, they've got armor. What do I have? A rusty chain and a flashlight." His voice cracked with fear and frustration. Her gaze softened for a moment. "You have me," she said simply, "and I have you." Before he could respond, the first of the new hunters leapt into the basement. Its claws scraped the wall as it landed with a heavy thud. Another followed right behind, their glowing red eyes locking onto Daniel instantly. Their weapons gleamed as they raised them. Daniel froze, his mind screaming at him to run. But the woman stepped forward. Raising her hands, her palms glowed brighter, filling the basement with a soft white light. The hunters hissed and snarled, shielding their faces from the radiance. Then Daniel felt it, warmth rushing through his chest. It wasn't his own heartbeat, it was something else, something stronger, pulsing with energy. His body stiffened as if someone else's strength was flowing into him. He gasped, dropping the chain. His hands glowed faintly, the same white light as hers. What's happening to me?" he shouted. Staring at his hands in shock, the woman's voice was fierce but calm. "The bond has awakened," she said. "Do not fight it. Let it guide you." Before Daniel could argue, a hunter lunged at him, blade slashing down. His body moved on instinct. He raised his arm, and light burst from his hand like a shield. The blade struck it and bounced off with a metallic clang. The hunter snarled in frustration, but Daniel's own eyes widened in disbelief. He hadn't planned it. He hadn't even known he could do it. Something deep inside had simply acted. Another hunter swung at him, and again his body moved faster than his mind. He dodged low and swung the flashlight upward like a club, but this time the light in his hand surged into the blow. The strike landed on the hunter's chest and sent it flying backward into the wall. Stone cracked under the impact. Daniel staggered back, gasping. What did I just do?" he whispered. His arm shook. Not from weakness, but from the rush of power. The woman stood beside him now, her own hands blazing like twin suns. She gave him the faintest smile, fierce and proud. "You are not powerless," she said. "You never were. They feared this. They feared us. That is why they chained me." The hunters regrouped, two circling to the left, one moving straight toward them. Their growls echoed through the stone basement like thunder. Daniel's heart still pounded with fear, but something else rose above it now. A strange certainty, a fire he didn't recognize. When the nearest hunter lunged again, Daniel didn't retreat. He moved forward, his arm shot out, glowing light surging from his hand. The force slammed into the creature's chest. Dropping it flat to the ground, Daniel blinked, sweat dripping from his forehead. His voice came out in a trembling laugh. I just did that." The woman's voice was firm. "You are awakening," she said. "The bond remembers even if your mind does not. Together we are stronger than they ever imagined." The remaining hunters snarled. One raised its weapon and fired a bolt of red energy. The blast streaked toward them. Daniel flinched, yet his body reacted before his fear could take hold. He raised his arm and the light shield shimmered again. The blast hit and scattered into sparks, leaving him untouched. The woman used the opening to strike back. Her glowing hands released a wave of energy that crashed into the hunters. They stumbled, roaring in rage. One fell, armor cracking under the blast. Daniel's chest heaved. He turned to her. We can actually fight them." Her eyes locked onto his, burning with certainty. "Not just fight," she said. "Win," the last hunter screeched. Charging them both with its claws raised, Daniel and the woman moved as one. She raised her hand. He mirrored the motion. Their light surged together, blinding white filling the basement. The hunter's scream was cut off as it was hurled backward, smashing through the stone wall with a crash. Silence followed. Dust hung heavy in the air. Daniel's arms dropped, his body trembling from exhaustion and shock. His flashlight clattered to the floor. Rolling into the shadows, he gasped for breath, staring at the rubble where the hunter had fallen. His hands still glowed faintly, the light pulsing like a heartbeat. He turned slowly to the woman, his voice hoarse. "What just happened to me?" Her eyes softened, and for the first time, there was no desperation in her face, only relief. "You remembered," she whispered. "Not with your mind, but with your soul. The bond between us is alive again, and now, they cannot stop us." Daniel's knees nearly gave out. He leaned against the wall, his head spinning. But even through the fear and exhaustion, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Strength. Not just in himself, but in her. in the bond that connected them, and for the first time since stepping into the basement, he believed her. The basement was silent at last. Dust floated through the air, carrying the smell of scorched metal and stone. Daniel's chest rose and fell as he struggled to catch his breath. His arms still trembled from the light that had flowed through him. His hands glowed faintly, the strange warmth fading but not gone. The woman stood beside him, her silver skin shining softly in the dark, her glowing eyes no longer desperate but calm, steady, and full of something Daniel didn't expect, trust. She turned toward him slowly, her lips curving into a faint smile. "You see now," she whispered, her voice soft but strong. "We are not weak when we stand together. They cannot break us." Daniel pressed his back against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the cold stone floor. He let out a long, shaky laugh. "This is insane," he muttered. "I just fought monsters in my basement with glowing hands. And somehow I didn't die." His voice cracked with disbelief. But there was no denying what had just happened. The woman knelt in front of him. Her chains lay broken on the floor, but she looked freer than any person he had ever seen. She placed her hand gently over his. The warmth returned instantly, soft but undeniable. "You lived because you are mine," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "And I'm yours. That bond is older than these walls, older than the hunters, older than this world." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I don't understand it," he whispered. "I don't even know who you really are. I just bought this house. I thought the biggest problem I'd have was fixing leaky pipes, not—" He waved toward the fallen hunters. "This," she tilted her head, her glowing eyes filled with patience. "You don't need to understand tonight," she said softly. "All you need is to accept that your life is no longer small. It never was. You were meant for more." Daniel stared at her, sweat dripping down his face. His mind screamed at him to deny it again, to call it madness, but his heart no longer listened. The visions, the light, the way his body had moved with hers, none of it could be ignored. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was different, like a calm after a storm. Finally, Daniel broke it, his voice low. "What happens now?" The woman looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Now, we leave this place," she said. "More hunters will come, they will never stop. But together we can fight them, and one day, we can end them." Daniel's stomach twisted. He thought of the quiet life he had planned when he moved here. A simple job, a simple home, a fresh start. That plan had crumbled in one night, replaced by something bigger, heavier, but also alive. He rubbed his face with his shaking hands. "I didn't ask for this," he muttered. "I didn't ask to be part of your destiny." Her hand slid to his cheek, gentle. Her voice was a whisper. "And yet you came. You opened the door. You freed me. You chose without knowing." Her words hit him harder than he expected. She was right. He could have walked away. He could have locked the basement and pretended nothing was there. But he didn't. He chose to face the darkness. Even when it terrified him, Daniel let out a shaky sigh. "So, what does that make me now?" The woman smiled faintly. "My husband," she said simply. Her glowing eyes softened. "My protector, my partner, my bond." The word made his chest tighten, not with fear, but with something else. Something he couldn't name yet, but deep down it felt real. He stood slowly, his legs still weak. He looked around the ruined basement, at the hunters' bodies, at the broken chains, at the cracked wall. His life would never be normal again. He knew it, and strangely part of him didn't want it to be. The woman rose with him. She stood close, her presence steadying him. "The world above will not be kind," she warned. "They will call us dangerous, they will hunt us, but together, they cannot stop us." Daniel nodded slowly. His fear was still there, but beneath it was a new fire. He had felt the bond, he had seen its power, and for the first time he wasn't just surviving, he was standing for something. He turned to her, his voice steadier than before. "If we're really in this together, then I need to know your name." She blinked, surprised, then smiled. "Lyra," she whispered. "My name is Lyra." Daniel repeated it softly, letting it roll off his tongue. Lyra. The name felt strange and familiar all at once, like it had always been there, waiting. She took his hand again and the glow returned, softer this time, no longer a weapon, but a promise. Daniel looked at her, then at the ruined basement, and finally at the stairs leading upward. He took a deep breath. "Then let's go," he said. His voice carried more strength than he felt. But it was enough. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. Her glowing eyes burned brighter. A new beginning, she whispered. Together, they stepped toward the stairs, leaving the chains, the hunters, and the darkness behind. Above them, the night waited, full of danger, but also full of stars. And for the first time, Daniel didn't feel afraid of what came next. With Lyra at his side, he felt something else entirely. Ready,